Okay, cool. And then, but otherwise, if you haven't built bots, are you guys familiar with it? Because in a way, we're going to do something even more advanced than sort of basic bots. So I'm hoping that you guys can keep up and talk about it and so on. So I think just to set some context, I think let's start. I'll just do a quick recap. We're going to talk about Interbot. I think that's the main purpose of this presentation and discussion here. I also like to keep it interactive, so please don't hesitate to interrupt, ask questions if something's not clear. Happy to do that, and so on. But before we go to phase 2 of the bot phenomena, I think I'll just do a quick recap of phase 1, if you will, right? So the way I like to think about bots is that bots sort of represent a once in a decade kind of paradigm shift, right? A major technology paradigm shift. And these are big words. So what I mean by that really is, if you look at the last 30, 40 years of tech, every decade or so, the user interface changes. The very way in which we use computers changes fundamentally, right? So in the mid-'80s, right after the birth of the PC, it was the desktop era, right? You have a desktop OS, you download desktop applications, use it, so gaming, banking, whatever it is, was an application. And then a decade later, it changed, this time to the web model, right? So now you used a browser, you go visit websites, and now you had gaming websites, banking websites, and so on. Everything became a website. And then a decade later, yet again, it changed to smartphones and mobile apps, right? So you had a gaming app, banking app, and so on. Everything kind of reinvented itself in a different form factor. And now we are on the verge of yet another big shift, this time to messaging and bots, right? So the messaging app kind of becomes the new browser or the new desktop OS, if you will. And chatbots are just the latest reincarnation of desktop apps or websites or mobile apps, right? So it's not just in India, but the world over, we believe in reincarnation, right? It's literally the same use cases, the same businesses, the same customers, more or less the same use cases, but in a different form, right? So that's what's happening, and there's a lot of reasons why people don't download apps as much, right? But the one app everybody has is the messaging app. So why not sort of put every use case and squeeze it inside the messaging app, and it just makes it a lot simpler and easier for the end user, right? And then it also makes it conversational. So instead of structured interfaces like in websites and apps, now you have conversational interfaces, which means instead of people behaving like computers, you have computers behaving like people, right? So you don't need to remember any UI. You just talk like you talk to a person, to a friend, and then it just works, right? So, and each of these shifts have been transformative, right? I mean, big companies emerge out of every one of these shifts, right? Desktop was, of course, the era of Microsoft, and then you had Google, eBay, Yahoo, Amazon, and then, of course, mobile apps, Apple. Actually, Apple was also in the desktop era, but then reinvented itself in the mobile era, Google as well, right? And then, and now, of course, in the bot era, a lot of opportunity for new companies, new tools, new applications, and so on, right? So big deal, I think, and especially sitting in India, right? I think India kind of missed out on all the earlier waves, right? Because India had neither the install base nor the tech base to understand it, to adopt it, to have a native market to experiment with, and so on, right? So India was kind of a bystander, right? In the mid-'80s, PCs came like a decade later. The web came maybe a few years later. Even smartphones came maybe, a couple of years later. But with bots, I mean, now you do have an installed base of smartphone users, and you do have a tech ecosystem, right? Look at this, and so on. So, and we do these kind of meetups around the country, so there's clearly a big developer ecosystem as well. So I think for the first time, right, I mean, in India, we are experiencing what a paradigm shift looks like. And sometimes people don't appreciate the significance of it, but it's a really big deal. And the value sort of, this is what you live for. I mean, because every time something like this happens, it's disruptive, lots of threats, but lots of opportunities, right? And those who can move faster, think cleverer, experiment, trial and error, all of that stuff, just suddenly, it kind of creates a lot of opportunities, right? While many people just sort of get left behind, they're conservative, they're you always have the kind of people where when websites came about, they said, why do I need a website? I have a brochure, I have a call center. Who's going to visit the web, right? And then like 3 or 6 months later, they all got fired because they didn't have a web strategy. So these kind of things happen again and again. I mean, it's sort of, we've seen the movie, right? It's kind of like Sholay. Now there's a new version of it, but it's still the same plot and the same different characters, but essentially the same thing, right? So anyway, I think let's go on, right? So if this happens, then clearly, just like every brand, every business built a website, and then they built apps, now they're going to build bots, right? So, and then some, right? There's going to be a lot of new use cases which are unique to bots and so on, but a lot of the existing brands and businesses, everybody will need that, right? So, so if you think about, building a bot, or if you've built a bot, right? Everybody starts with something like this. They say, okay, let's build one bot, right? A small thing, experiment, and build it for one channel, right? Typically Facebook Messenger, because it has the most users. They've also been very good at enabling a lot of features and supporting developers and so on, right? So, so you do that, and that kind of works nice and well. And then at some point, you reach a point where you say, okay, we can't just rely on Facebook Messenger. You got to be on multiple other channels or surfaces, call it what you want, right? You say, well, why not Slack and Skype and Telegram and so on, right? Typically, if you're a global brand, then you have to have users from everywhere. Or even if you're a sort of startup, why would you leave out users from different channels and so on, right? So you kind of do that, and then you say, okay, wait a minute. You also now have access to voice channels. So what about adding it to, to Amazon Alexa, or Google Home, or Microsoft Cortana, and so on, right? Or even like a regular plain old telephone, right? What if somebody could just dial in and talk to the bot? Not like IVR, press 1 for this, press 2. I mean, like real conversational bot, right? Just like Alexa or Google Home and so on, right? You can do some really cool things. Completely. In fact, okay, since you asked the question, I'll pull this out, right? So I was, okay, you guys don't tweet too much of this, okay? Because you get to see, you're here, I'm showing you a lot of tools and so on. So this is a plain old Pixel, right? Google Pixel, it came out like 6 months ago. Nothing special. I think Galaxy S8 is probably better, or rather more recent than this at least, and so on, right? So just to illustrate, right, what's kind of possible even with voice bots and so on, right? We kind of hacked up a little demo that, given the advanced tools that we built and platforms we built here, just took us a few minutes to do that, right? And I'll just kind of show you, but it's really simple and easy, right? And it's a voice demo. Just 1 second, okay? I just want to make sure okay, Bluetooth headset. Okay, so you really do a long press and start, but there's nothing to see. You just have to hear, so I'm sure you'll be able to hear it, right? Yeah, I'll just show you, it's really cool that we did, just from my bag. Will you just get, yeah. Just get my bag here, Son. Yeah. Anyway, so we'd created a little voice demo, and you'll see that it's really, delightful and quick and instant and very, very powerful. So, I mean, it blows IVR away, which begs the question, what happens to India's BPO industry once these things get automated, and we'll have to do massive dislocation and redeployment of resources and so on. So, I'll keep going, but well, let me just see. If I can take a second, I'll just try it. Otherwise, we'll keep going. I think connectivity here continues to be a big problem. Okay, so let's just try it once more. Let me talk to bank demo.
I missed that.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's already inside that demo. Okay. All right. Now it'll work. Let me talk to bank demo.
where we're committed to delivering great service and earning your trust. How may I help you today?
What's the status of my account?
Your account balance is 10 lakh rupees. I made your monthly EMI payment just before the deadline. I have recharged your mom's phone. Your child's school fees are due on the 15th. Your fixed deposit is maturing in 2 months.
How is my portfolio doing?
Your investment portfolio is up 2.4% from last week, driven by a rising stock market. Analysts are projecting 20% higher volatility in emerging markets. The market is also pricing in a 25 basis point increase by the Fed. It is recommended to move 10% funds to cash.
Can I get a loan?
We have many different loan products. With your credit, you are eligible for a personal loan up to 50 lakhs. If you're willing to pledge your flat, you can get loan against property up to 1 crore with a lower interest rate. You can also get an auto loan up to 20 lakhs.
I need 7,000 rupees in cash.
Bank demo isn't responding right now. Try again
Okay.
soon.
All right. I think, anyway, you get the idea, right? So if you think about it, the whole bank branch is right here, right? So you get the best customer support, better than IVR, with good insights, with intelligent recommendations, highly personalized. What's that? Exactly. No press 1, press 2 kind of thing. No authentication, no staying on hold, right? It's as if like you take the bank CEO and put that inside the bot, right? As opposed to dealing with somebody who doesn't even understand the products or doesn't know it, doesn't have all the details, and you can have some very advanced conversation, okay? And now this is just very simple. Of course, to build a full-fledged one takes a little bit of effort. But all of these things exist today, right? It's being rolled out to almost every Android device. So it's Android MNN, which means think about it. I mean, in India, I think as the replacement cycle happens over the next 6 to 12 months, this is going to be very standard, okay? So voice bots, I mean, you're not even going to call. In fact, through this, you can even make phone calls. So you're not even going to make a phone call. You're just going to chat through the bot and so on and so forth. So these are sort of very, very serious and massive disruptions, right? So better than IVR? Yeah, okay, good. So anyway, so I think there's a lot happening, right? So anyway, the point was, okay, so you create a bot, simple one channel, then you say, okay, text and then voice, or even on your website, you can put a little chat widget and kind of build some things there and so on, right? And later on, even IoT devices, right? I mean, there may be speakers or, your refrigerator, your toaster oven and so on. You can talk to it and say, okay, get some milk or eggs, and it just knows what to do, and they'll all be around. So it just becomes very ubiquitous. And then what happens is, okay, so you build a bot, and typically if you've tried it, even with NLP and Watson and all of these things, you put in a lot of capabilities. It takes a lot of effort. You train it on a certain domain, and then along comes the user, and they ask some queries, and a good % of them work. But then there are many others that the bot says, I don't know how to handle it, right? So then what happens is there's always a need to sort of expand the capabilities of the bot, right? Which is, in some cases, it was not programmed in. In some cases, it wasn't even designed for it, right? But the bot has a choice whether to not answer or to refer to someone else who can answer, right? So think about it this way, right? Suppose you had, I mean, even if you're a large company or a startup, right? Let's take a bank, right? You may have the lending division, you may have the credit card division, you have the banking division, and then you have customer support for some problems and to request a checkbook. So there's many different divisions, right? Now, if you try to build one complex bot, it can be very, very, you try to build a monolithic bot, it can get very challenging and so on. So sometimes you might say, okay, let different divisions build their own, right? And by the way, you add in geography. There's the North Zone or West Zone, or even international, right? You may have different countries, different languages, even, and so on, right? So you can't, it's really hard to build everything inside one bot. So you might say, okay, I'll just build a basic bot, that's the main brand bot, but any question that comes in that it can't handle, it just passes it off to some other internal bot that can handle that query, right? Or in some cases, maybe an external bot, right? So let's say your bank bot is offering deals or offers, movie tickets. And you say, okay, I want to buy that ticket. well, it doesn't sell you those tickets. So it can say, okay, go to the PVR bot and do it. Or simpler still, it could just talk to the PVR bot for you and get it for you, right? So I think in that sense, the point is it can extend its capabilities by connecting to other internal or external bots, right? And therefore, bot platforms need all of these capabilities. So, in particular, if you look at it, right, so to build the core bot, you need these bot building tools, with NLP, with AI, hosting, monitoring, analytics, and things like that. Those are tools that you need to build a bot, one bot. Then you need cross-channel connectivity across cross-channel APIs across different channels on the front end. And then on the back end, you need tools to enable bots to communicate with other bots so that you can extend these capabilities, right? Now, before we go too far, right, you might say, okay, well, why do I need, don't we already have APIs, right? At least the technical ones amongst you will say, right? We already have APIs to connect things. Why do we need to create bots? But I think there's a big difference, okay? Which is that, anybody who's coded with APIs knows it's a developer thing, right? But when you look at bots, you can actually have end users, consumers saying, okay, I want to combine this bot with with no technical skills whatsoever, but it just you're plugging them together like Lego blocks. Just string them together and it creates new interesting things, right? Can't do that with APIs. APIs tend to be very fragile, right? If you miss a parameter, they barf. They just don't work. With bots, if you miss some information, it asks you, what city do you want to fly to, right? If you want a ticket, it doesn't say 404 error or something, right? So it's sort of the other thing is APIs are synchronous request response. You send a request, they respond, or they time out, right? If it doesn't come back in a certain time. But bots bots are asynchronous by definition, right? It may take 5 minutes to respond. It may respond 2 hours later because you asked it, tell me when the price goes below a certain amount, and that information can come back after a long time. Also, bots are bidirectional. APIs generally are not. If you could do it with callbacks and so on, but with bots, they're inherently, the second bot can call the first bot because they're sort of independent entities and they can talk to each other, right? So again, APIs are merely for computers to talk to other computers, but bots are sort of dual purpose, right? Bots, because they're conversational, can interact with humans as well as with other bots and get technical, right? So therefore, I think I do believe that while everybody so far has focused on bot to human interaction, I think the next phase, anybody who wants to do anything a little more complex than that is going to need to start doing leveraging interbot communication, okay? And so then if you think about what's possible, right, what's possible and why you could do it, and I'll show you a whole bunch of demos, right? Everything we are talking about, it's all live, it's in production. You could see it, and when you actually see it, it's sort of really, really powerful. But imagine, if you will, right, what could bots do if they could sort of interact with, communicate with each other, right? There's just a whole lot of different possibilities. And in fact, when we go through some of these examples, you'll see that it's not very different from even how human civilization evolved, right? When we went from like hunter-gatherers, right, small groups of people essentially working individually, to sort of modern civilization where we said, okay, there's division of labor and specific roles and you get together and so on. And we are not so much a collection of Einsteins as we are a group of highly coordinated, interoperating aggregate bodies, organizations really, that do things together, right? And when we think about the same thing, right, think about bots, right? Are you going to have just a whole bunch of Watsons, or are you just going to have a collection of lots and lots of different bots, each of which does a few things very well, but together can interoperate and create something that is larger than the sum of the parts, right? So it's a very, very different approach. And And if you ask me, at least it's even more intuitive and more natural, because it's a lot easier to build individual things that we can test and verify. I mean, it's classic engineering 101, right? You kind of modularize and decomponentize everything into smaller modules that you can track and modify and evaluate and test and so on, and then combine it together to do interesting things, right? So let's take some interesting examples of, yeah.
On the previous slide, can you go back?
Yeah?
You may want to add one more bullet. Say impersonate.
Impersonate. Well, I think that's a little tricky in technology because it's a unique ID and I think it's hard to impersonate. I think people might be easier, but be harder for...
We have started doing it already.
Well, I think not in the way we are thinking about it. So I think, you know, so let's take some examples of what happens when bots can talk to each other, right? So a simple example is, let's say I have a shopping bot, right? And I say, go find me the cheapest, you know, mobile phone for this type at 4 gig RAM or something. And what does it do? It can go approach many different merchant bots, right? And get all the data and figure out sort of the best price. Comparison shopping is such an obvious thing, right? Now, as a human, I would only go visit 2 or 3 sites because convenience is a problem. I mean, I don't have so much time and, you know, it's just manually very, very hard. I've limited, as a human, I have limited compute, I have limited memory. It's really hard to do it. But my bot has infinite compute and infinite memory and has no problems going and talking to 1,000 merchants. So suddenly it sort of flattens the whole ecosystem, right? I think all the branding that they spend is no use because my bot has, like I said, infinite memory and compute and time to figure this out, right? So you can create these sort of interesting marketplaces. Or another thing that I'll show you a demo of a little later, right? Imagine gaming, right? So imagine there are like 4 or 5 poker bots, right? And then there's a dealer bot. And they could kind of get together and play a game of poker all by themselves, right? With somebody winning and losing. And it's role-based, and there's different strategies. And instead of people playing, you have people programming these bots, which then bet with each other. And then they actually even become sort of fully fledged financial entities that actually earn money or lose money, right? And so on. I mean, the possibilities are kind of endless. Okay, or something like, imagine if you had, you know, QA bots or monitoring bots, right? Or testing bots and so on, or crawlers, indexers. I mean, these bots are just like that, which they, you know, they're always out there and they're looking over and monitoring and tracking other bots, right? Monitoring uptime or tracking what they're doing and things like that, right? So I think you could do, it becomes easier to create these sort of services, right? As opposed to bots not being able to talk to each other, right? In fact, one analogy I forgot to mention earlier, right, is if you think about the difference between the web ecosystem and the app ecosystem, right? The web, which was so much more richer and so on, versus the app, was for the simple reason that websites could connect to each other, right? HTML, HTTP, it sort of hyperlinking was a big deal when it was invented. We take it for granted with hindsight, but you know, Tim Berners-Lee, I mean, he was given the, he was knighted and, you know, special all kinds of things and so on, because it's just such a simple but such a powerful idea of saying, hey, you don't look at a page in isolation. This page links to that page, and this concept, you know, connects to that, which connects to that, and the whole web as we know it, right? But apps don't behave like that. Apps operate in silos, right? Does your fitness app talk to your calendar app, talk to your travel app, talk to, you know, your messaging app? I mean, none of that works. They all operate in isolation. So if you're in a company, yeah. I mean, yeah, there are intents and so on, just a handful, but it really is nothing compared to a billion websites connected, right? So, okay, we're having a high-level discussion, so you'll have to give me, you know, some poetic license, if you will. Actually, it's not even poetic license. I'm about 88, maybe 98% correct, right? So, but it's hard to. If I'm accurate, then I won't have the brevity and so on. So you'll have to forgive me that, right? Yeah, I think it's very, very minuscule, the inter-app intents and tracking and so on. So it's sort of not a, you know, but I think, so same thing with bots, right? so far when most people talk about bots, you have just standalone bots, but couldn't my shopping bot talk to merchant bots? Couldn't these monitoring bots talk to each other? Or let's say, you have intermediary bots, right? So imagine you're building a hotel concierge bot, right? And wouldn't it be, if I ask it, okay, what's the nearest movie theater or a restaurant or something, and I want to make a reservation, either it says, okay, here's the restaurant, go there, or better still, talk to the restaurant bot or the movie theater bot, get the reservation done for me, and just offer that whole experience, right? Or I could have my Uber bot tell the Starbucks bot to have my coffee ready by the time my car arrives, right? Without me having to sort of talk to these 2-3 things. So now you can create this, or a tour package bot that could take a hotel bot plus a flight bot plus a car bot and then give me a vacation package, because it just sort of really aggregating these things on the fly much more easily, or you can create sort of organizations, right? Hierarchies, and organize it in interesting ways, right? A lot of people talk about, let's say, smart homes and things, right? So these switches can be controlled, energy efficient, and so on and so forth. But an obvious thing is, okay, houses in a particular neighborhood would also want to connect with each other. What if one home has an intrusion? Would it not want to notify the neighboring homes? And then would those not want to sort of, there's a hierarchy which then relates to the city and so on and so forth. I mean, that's just one example, but you can imagine many situations of sort of hierarchical, bots that can then get together to solve more complex tasks. Yeah.
So please can you elaborate more on smart home automation with respect to the bot communication?
Sure. So I think, so what you're seeing. Okay, so great. So what you're seeing these days is, so you get a Nest thermostat, which has a little app, and they don't yet have a bot, but I'm sure there'll be a bot which allows you to control the thermostat. And then there's the refrigerator with also another bot, and then there's a light switch and a fan, and the AC, just everything in your house has different bots. Now, what do I do? Do I really want to deal with 20 things? The first thing is, do I really want to deal with like 20 things inside the house? Wouldn't it be nice if I say, okay, sort of the romantic mood or something, or I'm going to bed, okay? Switch off the light, turn on the music, lower the AC, move the, whatever, the car goes into neutral, garage security goes on, and so on, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you could just have one thing that aggregates all of these responses, which is Interbot, right? So that's exactly what, so I'm coming to that. Gupshup is the first and the only company in the world that has launched an Interbot communication platform. And I'll show you a demo of all of these things. But the idea is that, once you have bots, now bots usually operate on some channel or the other. It'll be on Facebook Messenger or Slack or something. And, but so what we expect is each of these bots will publish to one more channel, which is actually not much work, right? So the same bot with no code change publishes to Interbot, and once they're on Interbot, they can talk to each other, they can discover each other, it can be aggregated and interacted, and then, and so on. And I'll show you some examples of things like that, right? Now, perhaps the most transformative impact will be not just in sort of having bots talk to each other, or other, let's say shopping bots or bots interacting with each other, but even the very way in which we compose, the way we create bots, right? So instead of developing bots today, right? If you want to develop a bot, so chances are you have to, you have to worry about I18N, right? You have to worry about NLP, you have to worry about, every bot has to sort of reuse a lot of these things. But won't it be nice if I could say, for example, just take a translate bot, right? Put it next to, let's say, an NLP bot, and then just create a simple pizza bot, which is just based on keyword triggers. And simply by stringing them together, I have a multilingual, intelligent pizza bot, right? Literally as simple as that. And I'll show you some demos of that as well. But suddenly now, so you could take like the translate bot from, let's say, Watson or, Microsoft Bing or something. I could take a Google NLP bot, maybe even a domain specific, right, an e-commerce NLP bot, and so on. And there'll be, so what you'll suddenly have is instead of people publishing code libraries, right, that's what we used to do in the olden days, I mean, you just publish it as a bot. And then you plug and play and combine them, and you say, okay, I want one of these, one of these, one of these, and then you just have to do one little piece of the whole thing. But it just you're composing bots. You're not developing bots anymore, right? Makes it a lot simpler, right? Which
that would need all these bots to follow certain standards, right?
yes, which yes,
Is that part of?
exactly. So Interbot is that proposed standard, okay? But it's not super complex. In fact, I'll come to that. Interbot doesn't even impose any semantic standard. Meaning it doesn't need to be a JSON payload or a particular format or any of that. You could have bots that talk plain English, okay, or just natural language, and you can just connect it. So the output of one bot goes to the input of the other bot, and so long as they understand each other, it just works.
So the layer in between must be NLP equipped.
Not the layer in between, the bots themselves have to be, but
But then even to be able to
understand each other.
Yeah.
So actually, okay, let me clarify further, right? And we're getting a little ahead, but that's okay. The platform itself, the Interbot platform doesn't enforce a semantic standard, okay? But you're absolutely right that, okay, well, how do two bots understand each other? What if they speak different languages, right? So what we're saying is, okay, Interbot's not going to define it, but you're going to have other entities, third parties defining different standards, and there may be multiple ones, right? Just take an example. Let's say the European Financial Association may define a standard which says this is what an order looks like, this is what an invoice looks like, and this is what VAT looks like, okay? Which means bots that are compliant with that standard will be able to talk to other bots that are compliant with that standard. And somebody else creates a similar standard in the Indian pharma ecosystem, right? What I'm saying is it doesn't make sense, it doesn't belong in the sort of the infrastructure layer, right? Think of it as it's like the ISO OSI stack, right? There are multiple levels, and at the lowest level is just the technical layer, and then at the higher layers, you define the semantic standards, right?
If I may rephrase what you're saying, instead of following a set of technical standards, or let's say for example a REST API standard, you expect the bots to follow industry standards.
Or no standard at all. Because most bots today, if you think about how they're being built, generally are for humans, and they're just doing natural language, and I could take, there's lots and lots of natural language bots that follow no explicit standard, but they just have conversations. And let me show you a demo, and then you'll see, but that's even simpler, right? There's no standard. Of course, so where there would be industry standards, but there is a lot of use cases where it won't be, right? So I'm not saying they won't exist. I'm just saying that it doesn't belong in the platform. That's what I'm saying. But others will create as and how it's needed, okay?
So basically the output for one bot is the input for another.
Exactly right, right? And so long as they understand each other, that's all fine, right? So which means that you'll have, like I said, instead of code libraries, you're going to have just bot libraries, right? Lots and lots of bots created by developers. So today, while everybody focuses on building bots for human consumption, you'll have a whole class of bots that are built simply for other bots, right? And by the way, the bot might say, like for every query that I process, you pay me a penny, right? And so micropayments and so on. So of course now you'll need somebody to enable micropayments in the middle, and then trust and verification and escrow and so on, right? There's a lot of infrastructure that's also required. But I think that will emerge in a way that it did emerge for web and so on as well, right? In fact, taking it even further, right? So there are some things that we're working on where Interbot will enable, even let's take something like search, right? When you think about a search engine, it doesn't need any website to come and tell it saying, hey, I exist, can you crawl me, or can you put me in your directory? If it's there, it gets crawled, it gets indexed, it gets ranked, and therefore it gets searched. But there's no such thing with bots today, right? So Facebook has a bunch of bots, and Alexa has a bunch of bots, and so on and so forth. It's all very fragmented. But our idea is with Interbot, suddenly now you have a large collection of bots all in one place, which means then you can have bots that can interoperate, that you can now search and index, and we'll show you a demo of this as well, right? So won't it be nice if you had like a super bot or a search bot where I can ask all kinds of things, right? What's the weather? And it goes and asks the weather bot, gets the answer and comes back. And I say, what's the currency conversion rate? Or, whatever. I mean, I could ask any of a million queries and it can solve it, not because it's all programmed in there, but because it's connected to every other bot and can leverage all that intelligence. So now it's equal to the collective intelligence of Watson plus Microsoft Bing plus Google plus a million other bots. In the same way that Google search engine feels super smart, right? Not because it has all the content, but just because it crawled everything out there, right? So just opens up a lot of interesting possibilities. So anyway, long story short, right, to the question of, okay, what is that standard? Well, Interbot is that standard. And I think the first key thing to understand is think of Interbot as and we'll switch to demos in a second here. Think of Interbot as a channel, okay? That's the first key insight. That actually even took us a long time to sort of think of it that way, right? So it's a channel just like Facebook Messenger or Slack or Telegram, right? Those channels are for humans to talk to other humans or bots. This is a channel for bots to talk to other bots. And the reason why thinking of it that way is important is because I can take almost any existing bot with no code change and say, okay, publish to one more channel, right? And once you do that, then a lot of magic happens, right? Which means, how does it work, right? A bot would publish itself on the channel, and then once published, it can consume other bots, so to speak, or other bots would consume its services, and then even compose, like I was saying, you can compose bots just by putting them together, and the idea is that it becomes literally as simple as plug and play, right? So any of you who've done shell scripting would find this very familiar, right? It's creating new bots is simply as simple as, A pipe, B pipe, C, which really, like you were saying, means, the output of the first one goes to becomes the input of the next one, and so on in a cascading sequence. Now, not every bot composed will be a sequential thing, right? You may also do it in parallel, like say comparison shopping, which is go ask 10 bots, find the best price and come back. Now that's sort of parallel, or it may even be conditional. Go ask this question to this bot, and depending on what it says, then go do this with the other bot, right? So the sequential stuff and parallel stuff is very straightforward with simple syntax. Conditional stuff, of course, is in code. But I think let me just skip that part. So let me switch to a little demo. But let me just pause here. Does it make sense so far? Still sound sci-fi-like, or makes sense? Yeah, doable. And this stuff is really new. I mean, we launched this just like a month or 2 months ago globally, and there's nobody else, I think, as far as we know, working on it. We've had some Microsoft bots published to Interbot. I think hopefully soon we'll have maybe Watson bots and some other bots there as well. But there's a lot of interesting things that are happening. So let me pull this up. Yeah. So let me. So I think. All right. So and just I think is the screen size okay? Just scroll down. Right. So we'll show you a few examples of Interbot. So like as I explained earlier, Interbot is a channel, and then again, there's still early days, but there's a few bots published here and more coming in very, very quickly. We'll soon have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of bots, which is sort of a significant part of the bot ecosystem. There aren't that many yet, right? But exploding very, very quickly. So here are just some examples. So let's start with the comparison shopping bot, right? So pull up this one. And okay, so just to clarify, what we're doing is this is a shopping bot, right? Just like you'd expect, and this is an emulator window. So the user is talking to the shopping bot, but the shopping bot then is going to talk to a whole bunch of merchant bots, which is where the Interbot comes in, right? So I think there should be queries right in there. Just yeah. So just take the first one, right? So let's say I send that query to the shopping bot, and we figured out a way. So just click on that, right? So what happens is the messages there are all just between the user and the shopping bot. But what the shopping bot does is it says it takes this query and sends it to shop 1, shop 2, and shop 3, right? These are sort of demo bots that we've set up. So these are merchant bots that get these queries, each of which responds with the price, and then it picks sort of the lowest price bot, right? And then and sends that message to the user. So this is sort of a way to, this little thing here is a way to peek into interbot messaging, if you will, right? Let's do the lottery, the gaming demo. Remember I was talking about poker bots and gaming bots. Now this is a simplified version of this where it's a lucky draw. Every bot guesses a number, and then somebody is lucky, right? So let's start with that. And let's look at the interbot messages, right? So here's what's happening. It's all in real time, right? So it starts the game, it sends a message to player bot 1, 2, and 3 saying I'm starting game. So they acknowledge. Then it says give me your move, and each of the bots returns, the first guess, the second one, and the third one, right? And again, for demo purposes, we sort of stop this here and say, okay, let's do draw, so that now the dealer will guess the number and then pick one of the lucky bots and notify each one of them that, right? So the dealer guesses this, and it says, this guy won and these guys lost, and then they respond with a confirmation kind of thing, right? So makes sense, right? These are sort of, it illustrates multiplayer roles, maybe complex workflows with logic and so on. Let's take sort of the brand bot, right? So this is an example of an intermediary bot where depending on the query, so this is a conditional example, right? Like I was saying, right, let's say you're a telco with different brands. You sell, maybe music and, also data plans. So depending on the query, it will route the query appropriately to the appropriate one, right? So in this case, you're talking about sort of product A, right? So go ahead. Or is it brand A?
Brand A product.
Okay. Right, so what it does is, right, so it forwards this query to bot called brand A, right, which then replies with this information. But the same thing, if we asked about sort of, yeah, try that. Right? So here you'll notice that it's being sent to a different bot, and then the response comes back, right? So this is sort of a conditional switch depending on the content of the query, rather than something that's hard-coded. I think that's fine. It's all right. So let's try, maybe that one. So this is an example where, okay, if any of you have tried to build NLP bots, I mean, NLP is sort of not easy, it's tricky, it's complex, and so on. But here is a whole new take on building NLP bots without building any NLP at all, right? Meaning if somebody else has done the work for you, right, you just sort of leverage that and put it in. So I think I want to just, there's a, anyway. No, go ahead, I think if you would know. Okay, so this is sort of an e-commerce query, but what this bot does, right, is it first sort of sends it to an intent bot, saying, what is this query about, right? And it says, okay, the intent is to buy, right? And then it says the entity bot, right? What is it? What do they want to buy, right? And then it says, okay, it's a jacket and a shirt. So now it says, okay, I know what to do. And it executes that, right? And this is a simplistic example, but it can get fairly complex with a lot of context and so on. And the point is just by layering it, you can plug and play somebody else's dedicated e-commerce, NLP module to kind of build that out. I think there's many other examples, but let's do the following. We'll go to compose. No, let's just show the couple of bots. So pull up which one do you have? Maybe the Bing News?
The Bing News,
Okay, so what we're going to do, now this is a simple bot, right? There's no Interbot in here, but this is this is Microsoft Bing, right? They have a news service that we just created a bot out of, and you give it any topic, right? Yeah, just say Trump, I guess, yeah. Right, so if you give it any topic, it'll give you sort of the news story, right? It's really something very simple. It just finds the first story. It's a simple version of a bot, right? And then let's look at this one, right? The sentiment analysis bot. Anything you type in, right? No, the sentiment analysis. I'm feeling happy.
So you can give it a new, okay.
Right, so if you type in anything, it'll just give you the sentiment of that, right? And I think Watson also has these services and others too. So it'll give you, right, it just says, is it positive or negative? We've sort of simplified it. It's sort of a numeric score, right? But a simple thing to do would be to say, I'll come to you, right? A simple thing to do here would be to say, okay, let's combine these two, right? Take the Bing news, add it to sentiment analysis, create a new bot, so that if I typed in Trump, I can find out, okay, is it positive news or negative news kind of thing. So can we go to, yeah. Right here, right? Yeah. Well, if you have a bot that's built to identify sarcasm, I'm sure they could. You have bots emulating humor, writing journalistic articles with all kinds of things. So, I mean, it's not. I haven't seen much. Well, the closest I've seen, I know Watson talks about sentiment. I mean, sentiment goes actually much deeper, right? So you can tell the tone. Yeah, no, this is, well, for demos we've simplified. It's actually we've deliberately dumbed it down because you get a numeric score, but I think it's easier to explain and so on, right? But you get a confidence score, so you can get, you can get the tone of voice, you can get the mental state. I think there's a lot of these things being done, if you will, right? So, did you have a question as well? The graphics and multimedia? Yeah. Yeah, sure. In fact, we have an image thing as well. We'll show you that. Yeah.
How about different languages? Like people tend to ask questions in half Hindi, half English.
So won't it be nice? We'll show you a translate bot as well. Hold that thought.
I want to ask if you give a bot a query and again repeat that query, will it follow the same path or it will?
I mean, it depends on how the bots are built.
My question is, can it learn over time?
Of course. I mean, that's what I mean, right? If you
Ask the other bot and then answer.
yeah, I mean, certainly, right? If a bot sort of, if it maintains context and state, then it would know that. But let me show you this one last thing, and then we'll jump into a full-on discussion, right? So remember, I showed you these two bots, right? The Bing News and the sentiment analysis. And like I was saying, it's as simple as stringing them together. So why don't you just create right? So here we are just saying, okay, you take, we're going to create a new bot, demo sentiment, which is Bing News pipe to sentiment analysis, right? The two bots that you just saw, right? So now you do this in like a few seconds, it just kind of creates a bot, right? Just like that. And now it should be somewhere out there on the, yeah, right there. Okay, and let's have the same Trump, right? Let's look at the Interbot. So as you'd expect, this query goes to Bing News first, which returns the story, and this is then sent to sentiment analysis, which will return the yeah. I think sometimes it sort of has a, just try it again, just close it and try it again. No, I think just type it again. Okay, so there you go, right? So it's sort of really just A pipe B. Now you asked about languages, so we had created another bot. So just pull up this Spanish weather bot up there, the third one, right? Now as you can tell, one sec, as you can see just from its description there, it's the weather bot sort of piped to an English to Spanish translator, okay? So just type in Mumbai, right? You want to know Mumbai's weather in Spanish. Now, I don't know why you want to do that, but if you want to, you'd. So first, in fact, it's actually multiple interbots, right? First gets some JSON template, which it converts to plain text, which then if you take it here, is in Spanish, right? And it's really just, you're just stringing things together. Now, if I did translators on both sides, which is Spanish to English, do some processing, and then English to Spanish, now I have like just a Spanish bot, right? And take any other language, and now it depends on how good the translators are, of course, but at least if you're leveraging state-of-the-art tools, then what you're doing is you're outsourcing the problem to a Microsoft or to a Google or IBM or whatever, saying, okay, you guys solve these fundamental building blocks, and I'll just focus on my business logic. And you just build an English processing bot, and then by leveraging these translate bots, it works in 100 languages, right? So I think, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah.
My question about the language, I was asking about English and because see, we have a travel agency called Let's Take Away, and people tend to ask, package ka kitna? They don't speak like English and Hindi, they speak together. So
Right.
how would be a possibility there?
Oh, okay. I think, so this is not a technological solution so much as tips and tricks and best practices and so on. So we've created some travel bots that we could probably show you. The first heuristic, the first trick that I would leverage is the fact that most of these words in any language, like ticket in any language is still a ticket, okay? Hotel in any language is still almost always a hotel, okay? Or a computer, or a reservation, or check-in, right? I don't know how you say it in Hindi or Marathi, except exactly the same. So you don't really need to understand every word in the query that comes in, right? Well, if you could, the way I like to think about it is, firstly, because it's very non-deterministic, it's not precise. So if you can get an exact match and the query is well formed, maybe you can understand it. If it's not, at least you can understand that there's the word, ticket and cancel. And then you can say, okay, now, acha, mere ko mera ticket cancel karna hai. I mean, at least you understand ticket and cancel, you can do some, you can validate. So you can say, do you want to cancel your ticket? And then if they say yes, then you take them to the next step. So there's many things you can do that actually works pretty well, okay? But clearly, state of the art of NLP and other languages is nowhere near what it is in English, but it doesn't need to be. You can get very far with these things. And I would say, the good thing is the baseline in other languages is lower anyway, because the fact that it can understand half of what you're saying is already much better than understanding nothing. So, right?
Yeah. Will you throw some light on the standards that these bots need to follow to be able to?
Yeah, so I think, if you saw, so firstly, many of these were sort of plain language, right? I mean, natural language really, without standard, right? And I think we deliberately wanted to keep it that way because you want to be able to take almost any bot out there and be able to string it together with other things to compose new bots, right? So that's the first thing. But beyond that, like say there was a JSON payload in the weather thing. Now, if somebody has defined that as the weather standard, and somebody else is building a weather bot, I mean, then they should make sure it complies with that, right? So what I'm saying is we are sort of, Interbot as a platform doesn't care about what the standard is. It, in fact, to be precise, doesn't enforce a standard. But bot developers obviously will have to enforce that standard, right? What I'm saying is if you say I want to speak to a German person in German, well, then you have to go learn German, right? The airline will just take you from here to there, right? It enables the transport layer, if you will, but it doesn't sort of enforce. So it really is dependent on the language. But even there, I think with translate tools getting better, so even standards, right? The way I like to think about it is, the standard may itself be implemented as a bot, right? So think about, let's say, an invoicing standards bot, right? So I could say, okay, I have the amount and the merchant and the vendor, and give me a standard compliant template that I can send to someone else. So the standards bot will say, oh, wait a minute, you also need to give me your merchant ID and your country ID and something before I can construct the template. So there's a little conversation here, and it returns a standards compliant JSON, which you then send to your counterparty to do that, right? So it's a very sort of elegant, scalable framework of enabling standards in a very sort of flexible way, in a federated way, if you will, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for some company now to define an ontology of saying, okay, here are all the set of things that somebody could say, and to define a payload and standard and so on. There's many of these that exist already, and we just want to co-opt them.
So in a way, Interbot is dependent on these various entities to define the standards and for the bots to comply to those standards to be able to communicate with each other.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's dependent on that. I think, well, let's start with, we are leveraging the fact that in the bot ecosystem, a lot of these things are being built for humans, and therefore they're sort of very simple and straightforward sort of natural language, right? So it works in many, many cases of bots that exist today. If somebody wants to do highly specialized things, then of course they have to build those standards and comply to it for it to work, right? But it's not dependent on it. I think, yeah, but if they want to leverage this platform and build on it, then that's what they'll have to do, right? I mean, Interbot can't solve every problem. It just solves one problem of saying, look, if there are bots out there, it's a very fragmented, heterogeneous environment, and we are sort of enabling interconnectivity and interoperability, which should be very, very powerful. It's like HTML and HTTP, right? It doesn't say, okay, if you have an English website and a Spanish website, it'll translate it. No, that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to say, if you have something here and something there that you want to link, you can. So our purpose is, you have something here, something there, you want to connect it, we make it easy, and there's a network effects, and there's like, if millions of people, millions of bots do that, suddenly everybody is at least theoretically reachable. But you still have to understand what the other bot is saying and sort of do it. You had a question?
If I were a developer and I want to connect these two bots, so I would have to actually code and make the relevant calls and have that code run on it.
If you're doing something advanced, but none of what we did here was coding, right? I mean, like this new bot that we just created here is really, I could have put a graphical tool on top of it, and anyone here could have said, okay, one of this, one of this, one of that, and that's a new bot, right? So in fact, that's the miracle of what we're doing here, right? Is the fact that any layperson can simply plug them together to do amazing things. But yeah, now if you wanted to do comparison shopping or conditional pricing or something, then of course, that's logic that has to be coded. But there's a lot of things that you don't need to, and we've tried to put, at least the things that you can do very simply, we made it, as you can see, like really trivial.
Do you have anything on the lines of OCR, the software calculation?
What does that mean? There's so many people doing OCR, so there are some OCR bots here, right? So our goal would be to say, look, if somebody has built like say this Bing News thing, right? So you have Microsoft, you have IBM, you have Google building all of these services, right? So we just leverage those, as in those, they can put their bots onto Interbot so that anybody else that want to add an OCR into it, right? Does that image demo work, Vinay?
Yeah, I guess no, from the consume section,
I think there's some image rec here, right? Bing image and, but I think it's tricky how do you upload an image. I think it's more a UI thing than anything. Yeah, actually, yeah, you can put it, right? So what it does, here's an example. It's not exactly OCR, but it's an image recognition thing, which is kind of the same thing, right? So if you see here, right, this is two bots. Bing image, if you type in a character, let's say if you put in the name Trump, it'll bring the first photo of Trump. And it's a celebrity recognizer. And so why don't you just try it, I think. And we may have a rendering issue. I don't know if the photo will show up here or not, but let's just see. It does? Okay, so maybe pull up Interbot. Right? So the first bot brings up this image, and the other bot is now going to recognize this thing. So if you had OCR, right? So if somebody uploads a receipt, then this would sort of understand it, do the OCR on it, get some text, and then whatever would happen, right? Yeah.
Can I be excused?
Sure, of course. Okay, really good seeing you. Yeah.
So can we create our own language? Like, or does it provide a software development? SDK for this thing?
Actually, there's not much at all. So do you want to talk to how do you publish sort of bots here, right?
Yeah, it's relatively simple. So GovShop in itself is a platform. So you go to GovShop.io, you can actually build a chatbot. And by the click of a button on our dashboard, you can enable it for Interbot. If you already have a bot ready live, there's also a publish API that you can use to
Just click on that.
So we have a bunch of APIs. So say you already have a bot live, you can use this API to respond. So then it will be available for.
Similar to IBM Watson. You know, IBM Watson, they actually provide you graphical layout.
They provide what? I'm sorry?
The IBM Watson analytic tool, which I attended, actually provides you graphical layout. So that's why you form an interconnection with each and every it just provides you a flow chart, something like that. So
That's
you
to
provide.
model the bot itself. What you were talking about is to model the bot itself. What we were talking about is live bots.
Yeah. So, okay, see, you have to separate two fundamental concepts, right? One is building a bot, okay? And we have a tool called GovShop that we didn't even talk about here at all, right? That's a tool for building bots. And there are many of those tools that have graphical interfaces. So you can say first show this message, then if the user replies yes, show this other message. If they reply no, show this other message, and so on, right? We have it. There's a lot of tools out there.
In terms of hierarchy,
Correct. So that's about building a bot, right? So
mandatory you should know NLP for that.
what's that?
It's mandatory you should know NLP for that.
Depends. I mean, if you have a structured conversational flow, you don't need any NLP for that. And usually, if you're talking about graphical tools, then they're usually not NLP, right? Because think of it this way, right? It sort of says, which city do you want to travel to, right? Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai. It gives you these choices. You click on the choice, and then gives you the next answer. There's no NLP, right? Because you're clicking and so on, which you can do in a graphical interface. If you want to do a conversational bot, where the user might say, I want to fly to Delhi, I want to go to Delhi, can you take me to Delhi? I mean, there's 100 different ways they can phrase it. Then you have to know NLP, and then it has to handle NLP. Yeah. But anyway, so that's about bot creation, right? Which we didn't even talk about at all today, which was I was talking about, right? We're going to talk about something more advanced. So once you've created, and so there's many tools, but once you've created those bots, then the next point is, okay, what if you want to connect them to other bots and so on? So for that, like Sohan was saying, you don't need any SDK or anything. I mean, it literally is just like that, that publish API right there, and just open it. I mean, it just needs like, you pick a name, you provide the endpoint of your bot, and that's it, right? This is how you publish. It's like registering, right? You just publish your bot wherever you've built it on whatever platform, GovShop or IBM or Amazon or whatever. You just connect that bot using just this API to Interbot. And once that's done, now you can do all the other things that I was showing you of mixing and matching those bots with other bots to compose even more bots. Right? Yeah, so that's a great question. I think one of the things we didn't go into it in detail. Pull up the bot directory, right? So one of the things that comes as part of the core Interbot platform is a registry, right? So the registry is sort of firstly the list of all the bots, and then what we want to add, as you'll see, there's some of it here, which is, you'd have some metadata, some description, some capabilities, so that let's say some other bot is I'm looking for an English to Spanish translator. It doesn't know the name of the bot, but it knows the capability that it wants, so it can look up based on that find the bot, and then connect to the bot, right? So now, based on that, think about it, right? You could have, now this gets really sci-fi like, right? You could have bots that can upgrade themselves. So instead of pointing to this translate tool, it points to a different translate tool, and now it speaks 10 more languages. Or you could have bots that can clone themselves, right? Because if it's a composite bot, we can just create another one with a slight variation. And this can lead to like a bot civilization. You can have bots self-replicating, self-upgrading bots, sort of doing all kinds of things, right? So imagine they're getting positive feedback, negative feedback. If they have some capabilities, they can do arbitrages. I mean, by the way, these things are very commonplace on Wall Street today, and this sort of brings it kind of to Main Street, if you will, right? I mean, you have trading bots that buy and sell, and then they notice, okay, dollar to yen is better or worse than yen to euro, and so it says, okay, I'll buy this, I'll sell that, and close the loop and make some money. I mean, in a way, I'm making up a trivial example, but let's say there's a PDF to JPEG converter and a JPEG to PNG, but somebody wants a PDF to PNG. You can say, okay, I can just combine both of these to create a new bot that didn't exist yesterday, and sell. This costs 1 cent, that costs 1 cent, I'll sell it for 3 cents, I'll make a cent on top of it, right? So you could have bots that operate sort of autonomously, making money, losing money, earning money, right? And so on. So the rest of us can just sit and relax, yeah, right? Sound crazy? Possible? What's that? What about it? Yeah, so I think, look, again, right, that to me falls within the scope of one bot, right? A bot can employ machine learning to be smart and intelligent, and let's say to employ better poker strategy, right? But when it comes to bots dealing with other bots, I mean, that's sort of less critical. You're just saying that, okay, you have lots of intelligent bots, but they're sort of transacting, negotiating, composing, and so on. If you go to the PowerPoint slide, if you will. Yeah, just to make it full screen. Right? I mean, it's literally sort of, I think I want to just sort of end with this analogy that I kind of mentioned earlier, right? I mean, this was, as humans moved from the hunter-gatherer phase to agrarian and organized society phase, I mean, this was arguably the biggest step in human evolution, if you will, or at least human development, if not evolution. In almost the same way, I think, bots going from standalone, independent bots and silos to being able to, communicate, collaborate, compete, transact, negotiate with each other will be a huge step in sort of bot development and bot capability. So I think it's really a big deal, really transformative. It's early stages, so play with it, tinker around, I think do things, and there's endless possibilities. I think most of us have not even thought about what's possible here, but it'll lead to some very, very interesting things, yeah. All right, yeah.
My question is, when we make Interbot communication with the news bots, how do you recognize that a certain news is authentic, or if you get news from multiple sources, how you order them?
Or fake news, right? Yeah. So guess what? You just created the need for a trust and verification bot, which is probably a certifying authority. Well, by the way, this was a problem 20 years ago on websites. How do I know a website is trustworthy or not when I'm putting in my credit card? I can't even tell where they're based. I can't even know who they are. So came along VeriSign, Thoughty, right, Trusty, and they came out and said, okay, we'll verify. So they'd actually physically go in some cases, make a phone call, look at the location, your business ID number, your reputation, your reviews, who the owners are, promoters, things like that. And then they give you this little logo that could not be spoofed because it had a unique ID and so on and so forth, right? So, I mean, we've solved all these problems. There's no new problems here. It's just a different format. So now if I have bots, well, I could have a certification bot that somehow offline has done things with all the bot developers, and whichever bot wants that certification has to go through a series of steps, and then it says, okay, these 3 are good news bots, those ones I don't know. And then it's up to you when you're collecting news stories, right? You say, okay, I just want certified news sources, not fake news sources, right? So in a way, I mean, as this ecosystem develops, I mean, there's a need for sort of infrastructural elements, right? Standards was exactly one of those. But look, trust and verification, reputation and reviews, right? I mean, yeah, it may be legit, but they have too many disputes. Well, this one is much better customer service, right? So it's reputation and reviews like Yelp or Zomato or whatever, right? Then you have payment and escrow, right? Somebody has to handle that micropayment, cents going back and forth. Escrow, what if you pay the money but the bot doesn't give you the service, right? So maybe there's somebody holding the money until the service is delivered through an intermediary, right? And so on, and many more things, if you will. Okay, language compliant, right? Who speaks good Hindi, right? Maybe there's a bot that goes and certifies all other bots saying, okay, these are Hindi speaking bots, so now you only speak to other bots that, that are in your language or whatever. I mean, I think, the point is, whatever there is a need, there is a solution in this framework. What this is really is a framework, which is you think of, if you model any computing entity as a bot, and you model the communication protocol as Interbot, I can achieve almost any computation. I mean, and the point really is not that, it's innovate. I mean, these technologies have all been around, right? It's just that when people have solved this, right? Inside a computer, you have memory and processors, and then you have a bus and so on, but it's only within that, right? And then we created the internet so that they could connect one computer, actually not one computer, one intranet could connect to another intranet through this, and that expanded the capabilities, right? And then we had the web, which took one website and connect one document and connect to all other documents out there, and that suddenly created the web, right? So the same thing here, you take one bot and connect it to every other bot, and we think of Interbot as the messaging bus, and think of each bots as sort of processors, if you will, whatever analogy you like, right? So it's really just a framework, but then in this framework, it's becoming the dominant framework where everybody's creating bots, and therefore you connect them up, and then it leads to sort of a combinatorial explosion of capabilities. Yeah.
So I want to understand what is the Interbot's roadmap in future. So are you heading towards becoming a marketplace where there are bots who are coming in to make money or give services, or you want to create a B2C interface in future to become a super bot?
I think Interbot will essentially just be infrastructure, right? Which is to say just enabling a marketplace, an ecosystem of bots and so on, right? In fact, okay, you bring that up, right? There are some interesting ideas we have as well, right? So the infrastructure, it's just going to stay clean as a pure infrastructure. In fact, it has to be neutral, right? So we have this concept of bot neutrality in the same way as net neutrality, right? Which is the infrastructure does not discriminate against bots, barring some extreme policies, let's say, but it's neutral. Now, in addition to that, let's say if Gupshup itself wanted to create Superbot, it would just compete in the free Interbot with any other entity that wants to create an Interbot. But I would guess that IBM's search bot would probably be better than Gupshup's search bot because it would need a lot of capabilities, and so, or Google's search bot would probably be a lot better, right? So I think, anyway, Interbot is all about the infrastructure, not anything else. So it'll just have the messaging standard and the registry, and that's really it.
Would Interbot push certain sort of a bots behind and bring certain bots up? Let me just explain you with an example. For example, if Indian government has two bots, one for railway ticketing and another one for passport. So as a user, you need passport only once, but railway ticket you need maybe like monthly renewal. So if both the bots are on Interbot, I can actually go to the railway bot and ask for the passport query as well. So will that push the passport bot completely in the silo and have no consumer face at all?
I think Interbot has no opinion on this at all, right? It's really that bot and some other bot talking to each other, doing what they want to do, right? It's just like ICANN, the internet body, doesn't tell you what you should put on your website in front of or behind other websites and so on. It just says, look.
Bot is just a facilitator.
Exactly.
It's up to the bot makers of the bot.
Yeah.
So how do you intend to kind of, is there a fee for listing? How do you intend to monetize or
I think it's going to be some sort of usage-based pricing, but no, there's no fee for listing. It's just going to be, you know. Exactly. But again, you know, we haven't, these are early days, we haven't, you know, we want to drive engagement first. We're not worried about monetizing it just yet, right? We know for a fact that if this becomes the standard, it's going to be huge, right? So we are just focused on driving engagement first, creating use cases, and creating sort of a critical mass of bots, yeah. Yeah.
We are in IoT world, since how to work system for power automation to the smart camera. One of the specific requirement, immediately we will deploy, and we already discussed with last time the booth at Amazon, but we didn't get answer. What is my requirement is there? Like we designed the smart camera, and India everybody doesn't have a internet speed. So we want facility like people in a Facebook message, they will type the show me the camera,
sure,
and it will be go to my cloud server and take the picture of the camera.
So why don't we just discuss this offline, a specific instance. We're going to be here, our team is here as well. So let's just, once we break, we can easily do that, yeah. Yeah.
Could you go back to that page where you had how you publish the bot? That's essentially how bots will communicate with other bots, right? Because I somehow didn't get an answer to exactly how we can get bots to talk to each other.
So here's what happens, right? The first thing for anybody to talk to anything else is you need to publish, let's say you have an existing bot.
Sure.
You call that API, you pick a name for your bot, you put your bot's endpoint, right? And you publish it. So now it's published.
So what is channel for this? When you're saying channel, what does that mean?
No, one sec. I think, yeah, I think we'll, it's required, right? One sec. And I think we should just look at the.
It'll either be the IBC channel.
So you're saying either it's voice or it's text or it's SMS?
Yeah, I think
is that
it's.
what you're trying to say?
Yeah, really, because if the bot is published on other channels, though I don't think Interbot cares with it, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll look at it. It keeps evolving, and guys keep adding stuff for different purposes. So we'll get you the answer in a minute.
That's fine. My intent is just to understand, if you create a bot, how could I publish it?
No, so I told you,
How could
right?
I communicate with other
Yeah. So I think, okay, so the simplest thing is, let's just take this step, right? So we'll come back to you on the channel, but let's say you publish, which means you give your name, give the endpoint, right? And now that you have this bot name, the least you could do is you could go to this compose screen right here.
But sorry to stop you there, but just publishing the endpoint might not be enough, because my bot might take different input variables than what someone else, and without me expressing what those input variables are, how will another bot give that as an output?
So we talked about standards and all that earlier, right? So generally, if it's a bot, let's say we publish it to Facebook Messenger, forget Interbot for a second.
Right.
Today, when humans use your bot, there is no mechanism for any bot to say, okay, you need to put in these parameters and this and that, right? A well-behaved bot is supposed to introduce itself, explain what it does. If the user types something that's not correct, it says, okay, well, I can do A, B, and C. What would you like me to do, right? There's no documentation. There's no manual. There's no sort of swagger spec about the bot that a human understands before it talks to your bot, right? So if you built a well-designed bot, it's already reasonably self-sufficient, right? And all I'm saying is you take that bot and put it on Interbot so that some other bot that doesn't know anything about your bot will be able to talk to it reasonably, okay? So it was sort of, it's in the presentation we skipped, if you will, which is to say, okay, basic bot building means it should do those things, okay? You don't spit out a JSON payload in Facebook Messenger for a user, so why should it be any different on Interbot, right? So once you have well-designed bots, all you have to really do is pick a name, put it on Interbot, and then you come here and you string it together and do all kinds of interesting things, right? And of course, if it's some advanced logic, then there's some other APIs there as well for calling bots through code, right? Here you're calling it kind of manually, but there you can also call it through code. And you can say, okay, call these 3 bots, get some data, figure out some logic, call 5 other bots. I mean, all of that is possible in code, right? But the minimum, I mean, this would take a few seconds for you to do. It takes no time at all to put it to Interbot and start using it.
So if I'm building, say, a price comparison bot, and you currently have 3 registered shops who have bots, so what if a 4th shop's added? Do I have to add that to my price comparison?
No, I mean, that's the cool thing, right? What you would do is you just go to the registry and say, show me all merchant bots that sell a mobile phone, and it tells you, and then you go query them, right? So the way, exactly, so the way, and then you can optimize, right? Maybe you don't do it for every query, you do it once a day, right? And so on and so forth. I mean, because that's up to you. But all the tools are there so that, now the powerful thing is it's kind of organic, right? So now, as more merchant bots come in, you're comparison shopping across more of them, and then somebody else comes along with a reputation bot. So now you filter with that and you prioritize it, saying, okay, even if it's 5 rupees more, but it has a higher reputation, I'll rank it differently, right? So all of that becomes possible, but that's the power, exactly, that's the power of this, yeah. Yeah.
Somewhere down the line, security can it get compromised?
Absolutely. Well, compromised, not if we set the right mechanism, but security is an issue that we have to take care of, right? So, but again, there are, like I said, the trust and verification bots, their job is to ensure security. Right. So like I said, if there's a trust bot that says, okay, these bots are trustworthy, or they have a privacy policy, or we've verified who they are, then, those bots would, I mean, that's how, how does web security work? I mean, it's around the foundation of VeriSign and a handful of things. So it's sort of, you create tokens that certify every message and every transaction. Okay? All right, why don't we...
Is your Interbot, is that patented, or someone else can also come up with this?
What are patents worth in this these days?
Like, what is your intention? That's what, like,
No, so I think what happens in the tech ecosystem is, actually, no, we want to, well, so we built the platform, but we want it to be an open standard. Like I said, it stays neutral across specific bots. We are also talking to a bunch of influential sort of bot developers to create a governance mechanism, if you will, so that it stays open and transparent. And our idea is just to drive more adoption, right? And ultimately, if it's a good product, more people will adopt it. If more people will adopt it, then, then it becomes a standard. And once it's a standard, then competition doesn't matter. Okay, and the pricing will take care of itself as well. Okay, so why don't we break? I think we're going to be here for discussion. I think there's some food, pizzas as well. Are they here? Sure. Okay, so it's in the other room. And but was this helpful? Make sense? Yeah, trigger some crazy new thoughts and new possibilities. Yeah. No, it's a lot to digest, but the possibilities are endless. Yeah, it can be a game changer, and you're among the first few people in the world who are even exposed to things like this. So what you do with it is up to you, right? So, but let us know. We are looking forward to you doing some interesting, innovative things and making it possible, right? Just enabling a very rich and powerful ecosystem. That kind of thing. That should be a lot of fun. Oh, thank you. Okay, thanks everyone for coming, and please hang around and chat. Good food and good company. Yeah.